Well, as we have heard, this row is reverberating across Westminster and beyond. In a moment, we're going to speak to Conservative MP Alexander Stafford. But first, let's go to former Scotland Yard Superintendent Nusrit Mehtab. Nusrit, thanks for making time from home this evening. And talking of home, what did you make of the Home Secretary's accusations in her Times piece?
Well, it's absolutely bizarre, and you've described it as a soap opera. It certainly is that, with Suella being the main character. Really is becoming the Suella show. I think she's just ramped up her criticism of Mark Rowley because he's resisted her calls to ban that march. And, you know, when you read her Times article, you do have to kind of step back and think, this is really bizarre. It's everything. It's a combination of everything, accusing them of being weak and being afraid of, of getting a lot of flack, and therefore just making those decisions. The thing is, this has been going on for a while now, because she's been interfering. She's breaking down that British policing model. You know, she's going against the Constitution, and she's been interfering slowly for a while, but she's got away with it, got to say, because she's kind of, talking about stop and search and how she wanted that ramped up. She was then going on about arresting every shoplifter and various other things that she's done. Now, she's kind of blurred the lines. Her role is about setting policy, setting strategy. And Mark Rowley's role is more tactical, operational. But she wants to kind of almost make that decision, and she wants him as her lapdog. It hasn't worked, so she's turned and become really, angry because he's not done what she wanted. But he couldn't. And I have been criticising the police a lot, actually, when they need to be, and it's been holding them to account. But I've got to say that I do admire him. This is the right choice, because there is no other choice. He's got to work within the legislation, within the law, and he's not going to break that law, because, as Danny's quite rightly said, if he does, there'll be a challenge, a judicial review, and he's got to produce the evidence, the intelligence to say why that march needs to be banned. He can't justify that. And also this, operational independence. That's what the British model of policing is on. And he can't walk away from that. Otherwise, his role will just be a mouthpiece. And it's a real dark day for Britain if that, the operational decisions are made by the Home Secretary with the mouthpiece as a commissioner.
What is policing if you don't have the law, right? I mean, look, Nusrit, what else do you make of the comments that she made about bias within policing when it comes to demonstrations, favourable treatment given to, she said Black Lives Matter protesters or pro-Palestine demonstrators over and above, quote-unquote, far-right demonstrators?
Well, look, when you're policing a demonstration, it's about public order commanders will look at the intelligence, they will look at the risk, the assessment, and each protest will be dealt differently based on all those factors. You can't go out and deal with every single protest in the same way. If there's intelligence and, protesters are becoming more violent, they will be dealt with in a particular way. I mean, this about Black Lives Matter being treated differently and police bias or favouring certain groups, certain left-wing groups. Tell that to Reclaim the Streets when they were doing their visual. I'm sure that they would disagree with that. So the bias and the favoritism, they're just her words. She is stoking community tensions for her own benefit. But there is no benefit really in this, because the language that she's using is just it's just leading to a cultural war, which is what she wants. Is that what she really wants? It seems like it from the surface, but that will do Conservatives, nobody any good. If it's because they want to reach the far right of the party and, that's the only hope of winning the election, then is that what she's doing? But I think only Suella can answer that question. For me, policing is done in a fair, proportionate way and within the law. And that's how protests are policed. Referring to them as hate marches, I mean, what denotes a hate march? How does she define it? So all the, there's 150,000 plus people at one march. Are they all, is she defining every single person and a hate march? Are they all haters? Who, how do you do that? And I think that's the right decision to allow this march to go on Saturday. It couldn't be more appropriate. There's a disconnect between the public and the Conservative Party. There's people who feel powerless. They're seeing the tsunami of public suffering that's going on in Gaza at this moment, and they just want to use their voice to say, stop the war. Well, what could be more appropriate than to do that on the 11th of November? I don't think it's disrespectful. I think it's absolutely right. Those people are there exercising their democratic right to assembly and protest, and that should be honoured. Those people who made those sacrifices would, be horrified at what Suella Braverman would like to do.
Well, we have been speaking to people across the spectrum of opinions all week here on the show. Some people, it must be said, do not want the demonstration to go ahead this weekend. Some people have no problem with it. We've spoken to former service people, we've spoken to politicians, we've now spoken to you, former Met Police Superintendent Nusrit Mehtab. We really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's bring in our other guest on this, Alexander Stafford MP, Conservative MP, standing by for us. And Alex, you've listened to that entire conversation now. As a Conservative MP, what do you make of what's happened in the last 24 hours regarding Suella Braverman's comments in her Times piece?
Well, I just think this is a lot of hot air over nothing, to be honest. I think what the Home Secretary is doing what she should be doing, which is speaking for the people. And the majority of people do not want, and polling shows this, do not want a march to go, any sort of march, frankly, past the cenotaph, near the cenotaph on Armistice Day. She's just saying what a lot of people are thinking. And a lot of people are so frustrated with the Met Police and the way they have been handled, or rather lack of handling, all the protests regarding the Israel-Gaza conflict, and the double standards that are clearly there. She's just saying what people are seeing every day. And it is completely frustrating. The Met have not stepped up, have not dealt efficiently and quickly enough with a lot of the people who have been spewing a lot of hate on these marches.
Well, that's the other side of the coin that we were just talking about there in response to what our former guest was saying, Nusrit Mehtab. To clarify as well, the demonstrators say they aren't going near the cenotaph on these Armistice Day demonstrations on Saturday. Look, I want to talk to you a bit more about what's happening inside the party itself, because polling Labour well out ahead. At the moment, is Sunak in charge or is Suella?
Well, clearly the Prime Minister is in charge. He's doing a very good job of being in charge. But it's clear that Suella, as the Home Secretary, is saying how she sees it. And she obviously has the meetings with the Met Police. She sees what's happening. We see what's happening. I mean, the contrast between some of these marches compared to what the Met Police did to the Sarah Everard protests, absolutely disgraceful what they did to the Sarah Everard protest. They came down hard on certain protesters, and they're basically giving other ones a clear sort of pass.
Now, you've heard our guests talking about the need for independence between government and policing, that line that has to be kept. Our last guest talking about the fact you can't have government acting as a mouthpiece for the police and trying to have that control. And we have seen that in action this week. Rowley went to meetings at Downing Street and he stood his ground. So with what you're suggesting, with the way that policing is going, do you agree in that independence?
Of course, we agree in the police independence, but we also need to call out when clearly the independence isn't there. And I would say the police are not acting independently, they're not acting without bias, and they're not treating everyone equally. So
you absolutely mirror everything that Suella Braverman is saying within her piece. So then when you say it's been a lot of hot air about nothing today in Downing Street, there has been a lot of dissent. A lot of your colleagues have come out and criticised Braverman for her comments, have distanced herself from them. It must be said Rishi Sunak did not do that. But this investigation into how that piece was able to be published when 10 Downing Street asked for edits, I mean, what do you make of all that?
Well, clearly there needs to be collective responsibility, and I'm not party to the conversation had between the Home Secretary and her team and the Prime Minister and his team about what or not in the article. I think let them have that look, and then let's see where we are after that. So I think anything else is just speculation and hot air.
What do you make of the concept that Suella Braverman could indeed be positioning herself for a leadership bid at some point?
I don't see that at all. I think clearly the party is united behind the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister will be leading us into the next general election. I don't think anyone is positioning, as you say.
If she was positioning, not that you're saying that she is, but would you back Suella Braverman as a leader of your party?
I don't think there will be a leadership election for a very long time, because I believe the Conservatives will win, and under Rishi will win the next general elections. There will not be a leadership election for an awful long time, so it's something that I haven't entertained.
Alexander Stafford MP, we really appreciate you joining us this evening as well. Thank you.